What's up, guys? Checking the audio, checking. Making sure everything sounds good. Gonna get started in just a sec. Oop, gotta turn that down. Okay, guys, we are all set. What's up, guys? I'm Jay Randall. Welcome back to my channel where I discuss wisdom for the modern man. Today, guys, got another live stream for you guys, and today we are going to be reacting to a whatever podcast clip, quite a lengthy clip, and we are going to be getting into feminism. Feminist. Oh, we love the feminist. And more importantly, we love to see Andrew Wilson debate these feminists. It is some of the most entertaining content on the internet because their ideology is fundamentally flawed, and we just love to see it get absolutely demolished. So today, that's what we are going to be looking at. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And also, guys, we're going to be reacting to a lot of whatever podcast clips. I think they're great to just like dissect and really hear the arguments that these people are making, and just so you can see like what's out there, how do modern women think, and the kind of, logic needed to combat the foolishness that a lot of these women say. Without further ado, though, let's get right into it.
Off course here. We need to get back to this stuff. So, I was asking you, Jazz, you raised your hand for every single thing. How do you reconcile your feminist positions? And your feminist positions almost strictly relate to, like, not laws or anything. It relates to, like, gender expectations and a rejection of traditional gender roles. Yet in your own life, you don't hold up to your own sort of relinquishment of gender roles.
Yes. So my focus in education was on political thought and theory. So I think I can hold ideas and an ideology that I don't necessarily participate in the present, because those circumstances, and we live in society, men do exist in a certain way. Women exist in a certain way and have certain roles. We aren't equal physically. So there is that standard. The standard exists, and I am someone that does participate in gender roles. But it's just an interest of mine. Like the idea of gender liberation and just political theory was my focus. So
my question to you is your roles or expectations as it relates to women and dating. So you would say, for example, there's certain components that women should be able to escape from, like being submissive, right? Or being equal partners and not having the man make all the decisions in the relationship, right? You would reject that, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. Like in your own romantic relationships, do you want to be submissive?
I don't think so. I'm pretty independent, and I mean, I'm not speaking in sexual terms, but pretty dominant.
Yeah, I could see that off rip. She definitely gives off the, boss babe energy, where she wants, everything equal, and she wants a say in everything, and everything has to, get run past her. And it's just like, most guys don't want to deal with that, man. Most guys just want to make decisions for their family. If it's like really big, most guys are still going to run things past their wife or past their girlfriend. But for the most part, man, we just want to take the lead, know that you support us, and just go from there. But having to run everything past the chick or feeling that she needs to have a say in everything, yeah, most guys aren't going to sign up for that. And the guys who do sign up for that, man, they end up regretting it in the end.
In certain ways, and I think in my personal relationships, and this is why I think it's dangerous to perpetuate a certain idea and roles onto people, because everyone exists in a bunch of nuances. And in my personal relationships, I would rather just have a partner. So any characteristic that I lack, they should have. And if you're a man who exists as the role of a man in society, and you need that counterpart to be a woman who exists as the way women exist in society in that role, then that's your prerogative.
Okay, so how do you believe in gender liberation? Hold on, Mary, let's get the cameras going, okay? Do you believe in gender liberation only for women?
No.
But okay, if all women, even feminist progressive women are like you, insofar as you like say, well, it should be the case that men are allowed to, maybe men can be stay-at-home dads. But if zero women, especially feminist progressive women who perpetuate that men should be allowed to do this, but none of them actually adhere to it in practice, in reality, then how can men ever explore these other kind of gender dynamics if you yourself, as a feminist progressive liberal woman, you don't even want that in your own relationship? And I think this would also equally apply to the vast majority of other feminist women who, despite their own proclamations of wanting gender liberation or gender equity or equality, they still demand chivalry and men paying for dates and men being protectors and providers and all these things in their relationships.
And that's the thing. And no matter how much they try to create this like social conditioning that's outside the norm, biology is what it is. So the thing is, they're attracted to guys who stick within their gender norm and stick within their gender roles. There was videos going viral for a while on TikTok where feminist women were complaining that they want a guy who has like the liberal, ideology, has the liberal beliefs, and wants the equal partnership, and they want that liberal guy for his belief system, but they're not attracted to him. They find themselves more attractive to the conservative Republican guys, and they were trying to like figure out how to fix that situation where you want one thing, but the guys that embody that aren't very attractive, but the guys that you don't like their ideology, they're the ones that you naturally, because of men and women being attracted to their opposites, Republican, conservative guys tend to embody more of the masculine, they stick to their gender roles. Those are the guys they're going to find attractive. So even her, even though she's saying, oh, she wants to see a society where men are free from their gender roles, those men aren't going to get picked, and she doesn't even want that. As much as she advocates for that reality, she doesn't even want a guy who embodies the liberal guy in terms of like values and politics and stuff like that. But they want him to embody the traditional conservative guy traits and attributes. But those two things don't go together. They're like on the complete other end of the spectrum. So it's good that he's calling her out on that. Wonder what she's going to respond.
You want to escape from your traditional gender roles in relationships, but you basically want to be 1950s bachelorettes and still maintain men to their traditional gender roles. How do you explain that?
No, I think everyone should just feel free to exist as they should. And I think perpetuating these roles is dangerous. And although I do look for men who have to protect me physically, I think first it needs to happen on an emotional level where you have a partner who's completely open with you emotionally and maybe matches you intellectually.
Wrong. Here's the thing. Women can get away with stepping outside of their, traditional gender roles because the drive for sex for men will overpower that unattractive trait that they've taken on. The thing is, for men, there's a far greater burden of performance on us, and women are far more selective. So if we step outside of the norm and we stop providing what they actually want, there is going to be serious consequences. Whereas if a woman, she could be masculine, she could be fat, she could be, liberal, she could be a feminist. The man's desire for sex will overcome all those things and he'll still get with her. That doesn't work the other way around. If a guy, if he, sets aside the things that make him attractive, there will be consequences for that. And even by their standard, they say, oh, I want a guy to be able to be more emotional and not have to adhere to his traditional gender roles. But she doesn't even want that guy. This is why you don't listen to what women say. You just look at what they do. Look at the men they choose and go off of that. Because if you go and listen to her, she's going to tell you, yes, embody all the liberal soy boy traits. And it's all going to work out, I promise. We want those kind of guys. Bro, she's going to find herself with a toxically masculine guy, according to her. But she's going to be addicted to that guy. The guy who's, strong, dominant, assertive, and a leader. That's the guy that she's going to be attracted to at the end of the day. Or she's just going to keep trying to find this unrealistic, combination of both liberal and traditional, which doesn't exist.
But as it exists today, men are stronger than women physically, most likely. And
Okay, so if I go ahead and just grant that, fine, it's okay for feminists to want men to be protectors, how about paying for first dates?
yeah, I think when women go out with men, it's a risk. 33% of adult women are assaulted by men.
Here
so
we
it's
go.
not like it's a rare occurrence.
This is a completely dubious statistic.
Bro, the thing is, when men go out with women, it's a risk. When both parties go out, it's a risk. Like, men, okay, you're risking certain things. We're risking certain things. I'm not saying both risks are the same. I'm just saying it's different. I'm risking my time. I'm risking my resources. I'm risking this girlfriend. If you go out to a public setting, what are you really risking? Like, most people advocate, at least for the first date, you go to a very public setting. If you choose to go to the guy's apartment, or you choose to go back, to his hotel or whatever the case may be, or go to a very secluded environment, that's on you. You should be asking, as the woman, like, where are we going? You should be asking on the first date, at least the first date, where are we going? That way you can ensure that it's a public setting. And if it's a public setting, you're safe. Like, most girls, like, 'cause when I was dating heavily, most girls would, for the first date, take their own car to the date for the very first date. They would drive by themselves. I would always offer to pick them up because it just makes sense to pick up the girl. It's more traditional. It creates a better vibe. It puts you more into the control, and control how the date goes. But I would always offer, but most girls would, say, no, I'll drive myself, which that this guy is safe before they allow him to be driving around places. So they take their own car. So if you take your own car to the venue and you go to a public setting, what are you really risking in terms of safety? Like, what's going to happen? Like, these chicks, bro. But I'm still risking you finessing me, only wanting a dinner date, and wasting my time and money. So both parties are risking something.
It's just my opinion, though.
The statistic is your
No,
opinion?
it's
or
my
it's
opinion
fact?
that, like, if you're already fronting the risk.
The statistics you reference include, it's really kind of a disgusting, egregious thing what they do with these feminist statistics. Essentially what they'll do is they'll lump in things that are, perhaps we would agree, like, shouldn't be done, but are, like, not nearly as bad as, like, full-on violent stranger SA. For example, in these studies, they'll include things like catcalling. And
I think that statistic is, like, way more. It's like 9 out of 10 women experience.
Right, but they'll say, so here's what they'll do. They'll say that they'll create, like, this sort of amalgamation category, a catch-all category called sexual violence. And in the sexual violence category, they're going to say that things like catcalling, that falls under it. So when they give these questionnaires to these women, and the women mark, well, yeah, this one time this guy catcalled me, or if a woman's ever been called a slut, that also is under the sexual violence.
Yeah, I don't.
So it totally skews the statistics.
Yeah, I don't know any valid research or academic that would post any sort of data that would.
Yeah, women do that all the time. They do the same thing with, grape statistics. Do the same thing. They include a bunch of different things. Actually, no, it's not the grape statistics. Well, they do inflate those numbers as well, but they do that with the sexual assault cases where any little thing, a guy approaching you, sexual assault, a guy giving you weird eye contact, sexual assault. So all these studies that these feminists fund are greatly inflated with things that are just not at all what they're claiming it to be. So this is why you got to be very cautious. You got to look into who's funding these studies, and you can really see just by the ridiculous things that they include that it's just not not realistic and just not reality.
Would represent catcalling as violence.
Sounds like that would be in the harassment category, not the violent
sexual
category.
harassment.
They
not
consider it.
violence.
They consider
well, that's
it
an
under that
inaccurate
category.
data page.
Yeah, but if it is the case that all these feminist institutions and RAIN, for example, like that's pretty much the number one institution, as far as I know, that's advocating against SA.
And you think they skewer their data?
I've literally pulled, like I've actually looked at their statistics, and they make the 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 claim. And then if you look at the actual, it's most of it is from the NIS, but they've done other studies too. If you actually look at like the questionnaires that they're sending out to these women, it includes things like, have you ever been catcalled? Have you ever been called a bitch?
And this is considered reputable, or is this just like you're saying it's just feminist data points that they're pulling?
It's literally what they're citing to these, like RAIN. It's the studies that they're citing to come to the determination that it's been 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 women are victims of these crimes. And then you're gonna say, oh, it's 1 in 3 women are raped, but it's actually no, they're factoring in.
No, I get what you're saying.
catcalling.
I just don't know who would consider that to be. If
A
what
lot
you're
of
saying
people.
is true, who would consider
A
that
lot
to be
of
like
women.
accurate data selection?
I
lot
can
of
show it
women,
to you
for
if
sure.
you'd like.
No, I get what you're saying, and that is what it's representing. I'm
They
just
use these studies
wondering,
all the time.
Like there has to be someone who has countered their data and been like, this is a skewed data
No,
set and is inaccurate.
It's the data that these institutions that are
but it's
purporting.
an inaccurate data set.
Right, but I mean, if these are like
The talking points.
if these are the ultimate organizations that are dictating basically the cultural zeitgeist of 1 in 3 women are being SA'd, but it's including things like catcalling and getting called a slut. Yeah, that seems very misleading.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
Well, Brian's just pointing out there's a lot of methodological issues, like defining and measuring violence is really difficult because you can only measure it by your definition of what it is. You understand? Like, if you consider catcalling, for instance, to be sexual violence, then that would skew your numbers extremely high when they're really not as high as you're claiming, right? Lifetime prevalence versus annual violence would be another one. Types of violence, inflated sense of prevalence, right, could be another issue. There's a lot of data biases which happen. When I look at these numbers, I look often at how these things are defined, and I find massive discrepancies which are absurd, just absurd. Like the idea of catcalling, for instance, being sexual violence is fucking insane to me.
I would agree.
I'm going to let this chat come through, then we're going to move it on a little bit. Thank you, Pasty George. Appreciate it.
$200. Chair 1, can anyone be what they want? So, according to your logic, which other feminists also share, a person can be like Jason Voorhees or even Michael Myers. So, is mental illness a right? LOLXD.
Who are those people?
I don't know. They're
Those are
asking if I
famous horror
support.
characters.
Yeah, if I support like serial killers, maybe is that the
Yeah,
suggestion?
I think that's what he's asking.
I mean, obviously, there's a balance of morality that you have to consider when you are talking in conversations like this, and I think murder is morally wrong, and I think academics, anthropologists, political scientists, normal people on the street have all collectively agreed as a society that murder is wrong and serial killers.
Getting back into the notes here
sorry.
no, it's fine. Jazz, so like I said, there's a bit of back and forth. You said that our ideas, so I suppose me and Andrew, our ideas about gender are fundamentally so different that it would be a waste for us to have the conversation that I suppose we are having, have been having, and are about to have. Can you clarify what ideas about gender are fundamental that
Yes.
me and Andrew is so fundamentally different?
You guys define gender as biological, and I disagree on that baseline, so we fundamentally disagree on the idea of gender.
That's incorrect. Neither Brian nor myself would define.
Oh, what is your
gender as
definition
being-
of gender?
Yeah, so I'll explain.
Also, it's nice to meet you. I haven't seen you. I've seen like a clip recently, but
Oh, so her criticisms were just towards me.
Sex was a biological category, and gender would be a socially constructed category.
oh, okay.
Gender is trying to allude to some type. Now, I would disagree with the descriptive of what you consider gender to be. That's true. But no, we would be able to separate these two concepts with ease.
Okay, yeah, I agree as well that gender is
I
a
agree with
social
that.
construct, but you think that the way it exists, maybe not today, but a couple of years ago or decades ago, that men have a role in society and women have a role in society based off of
Neither
their
role. Yeah, well, by necessity. So can men reproduce?
No.
No. So which sex do we have to count on to reproduce?
Sure, but why are you harping on reproduction so much?
What are you talking about? Why are you harping on reproduction? They always say that. Anytime you're making a good point, why are you harping, or why are you so obsessed with this particular thing? It's like, no, bro, it's fundamental to the human existence, literally, reproduction. Every single species on planet Earth, it aligns itself with the best traits and characteristics and structures for reproduction. Both the female and the male. They both, whatever they do, their actions, why they do what they do, why they don't do other things, it's all in alignment for the betterment of their reproduction. So to say, why are you harping on that, is foolish. But the thing is, as humans, because of our greater intelligence, we think that we have surpassed reproduction. We think that we have superseded biology, and now that we can control whether or not we get pregnant because we have a pill and all these other modern inventions, we think that we are above and beyond reproduction, that our purposes on earth is no longer reproduction. It's to do art. It's to do whatever kind of foolish occupation we decide we want to do. It's to do social media. It's not reproduction. We've gotten big heads. Technology and advances in the medical field have given us big heads, and now we think we're greater than the system that God put in place, which is why it's backfiring on us right now.
Because you claim that there's no gender roles, right? That these are that it's a blank slate, that people can do whatever they want. But the truth is that we have to have a society, and that's going to require reproduction, right?
Do you not think that there would be some sort of balance when it comes
Before
to...
you ask me a question, can you do me the service of answering mine?
Oh, sorry, repeat your question.
Yeah, so is it the case that women are the only ones who can reproduce?
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the case, then help me out with this. If we want to have a society, we need women to reproduce, right?
Yes.
So if we need women to reproduce, why wouldn't we tailor society in such a way which was conducive to female reproduction, and men who can't reproduce, not reproducing, but providing the services in which their body archetype is designed for?
Like literally every other species on planet Earth.
Do you think every woman should reproduce?
And hang on, answer my question first.
Well, I'm getting there, though. You're asking why wouldn't we...
You don't answer a question by asking one. You answer a question by answering it, and then I'll answer yours. So start with this. Why is it that you don't want to tailor society towards females reproducing, since they're the only ones who can, and men towards doing the hard labor jobs and the dangerous jobs, which basically only they can do as well? Why would you not want society conditioned that way?
Because I think it's extremely limiting to the human experience. I think women are more than just birth givers.
Okay. And can women have... Okay. Now I'm willing to listen to your line of inquiry. Go ahead.
Do you think every woman should reproduce? Do you think that if the roles weren't the way that they are, or the way that you want them to be, where you need a woman to reproduce?
So when you ask a monolithic question, the answer to your question is no. I wouldn't say every woman on planet Earth needs to reproduce, but that's kind of to have a society. So even if it's the case that like women without uteruses can't reproduce, or women who can't menstruate can't reproduce, or women who can't have eggs can't reproduce, or even some women just are so untailored towards motherhood they can't, I would still think that you would want the social conditions for reproduction to be the thing you focused on, because otherwise you don't have human beings.
Yes. So do you think
Exactly.
that reproduction wouldn't occur anymore if the roles weren't as they are now?
Well, that's a good question, because you can see the roles as they are now. We could look at the roles as they were, 100 years ago, and we could see society thriving in terms of reproduction, in terms of families, in terms of families staying together, and even in terms of like overall male and female happiness and satisfaction. And now we've stepped into the world of feminism. And unfortunately, feminism has changed the world in such a way where women are, being told that they should push off their childbearing years until well into their 30s. And that, of course, due to biology, which we are not greater than, is going to limit the amount of kids a woman can have if she ever has kids, because you also run into the problem that if she attempts to now start, seeking out a partner and relationships at around 30, they're less attractive to men, which men are going to be less likely to want to get with those women, which increases their likelihood of having kids even more. So we've seen a rapid decline in birth rates across the globe as feminism and this idea that the traditional roles and the traditional structure is somehow flawed, and we need to flip it on its head or make it a little bit more, nuanced, where we should always allow people to do what they want to do, but we should still advocate for a society that puts families, communities, and reproduction first. Because if not, you get the result that we have now, where we think that, if we do it backwards and have women focus on school early when they're most fertile, when they're most attractive, and then push childbearing off into your 30s, that, it's fine. We have new medical advancements. We have egg freezing. We have all these other stuff. Yeah, there's not going to be a huge effect. She's going to be more stable, more capable of taking care of the kids. But that's not what we see reflected in society. So to her question, yeah, major effects. Yeah, there'll be women who have kids, but not nearly enough.
As a matter of fact, I don't. And here's my proof. What's the birth rate in every single Western country in most of the world? Is it above or below reproduction rate?
Below, well below.
The birth
So you need
rate.
to have, mommy and daddy need to have 2 babies in order to replace mommy and daddy, right? Are mommy and daddy having 2 babies to replace mommy and daddy?
So, if anything, they're just keeping the birth rate, even, but most are having like 1. So, no, we're not replacing it. Ideally, you want to have more. Like, if mom and dad have like 4, then we're good. If mom and dad have 3, then we're still good. If we have 2, then basically they just replace themselves, which is fine. At least, it didn't go down. But ideally, 3 and up is typically what you want to see in society. Most people aren't having that. The ones who are having that are the immigrants. And that's why they're saying, to solve the birth rate problem, let's allow, immigrants in, because they're the ones who still have that traditional mindset of family, and within keeping the family together, you're going to reproduce more. Immigrants tend to reproduce more, have more kids, and so they're trying to use that as a means to solve a bunch of other problems. I think we need to start just pushing the kind of media and just kind of, I would say, the kind of propaganda, the opposite of the propaganda that the feminists are pushing, because they're pushing, no kids, college, school, that is more important. We need to be pushing the opposite. We're advocating for a society where they choose to do that after children. That would be the best outcome.
No, they're not.
Well, that's really weird. It's almost like when we apply your insane ideology of non-specific gender roles and moving the social conditioning to move women into the marketplace workforce where they're fucking miserable, it's not conducive to reproduction. Now, under my worldview, which is the right worldview, I would tailor society towards females and reproduction, which would include staunch gender roles. And then we would actually have a society.
Would
Right
you?
now,
And
what's
that
going on
excludes
is that
men
your society
pretending
is
to be
being-
women.
Your society, hang on. Your society is being replaced, literally replaced by immigrants, because our societies can't reproduce themselves.
Facts.
Would you not suggest that maybe women should just have more resources to help them?
Resources. Wait. You want women to have more resources?
What's giving them more resources going to do? What's giving them more money? What kind of resources? The only resource that, based on how women want to live their lives, the only resource that they want is, what is it, IBF, or just like the egg freezing? That's the only thing that can really help them. But that is incredibly expensive and out of the price range that most women can afford. So resources, egg freezing, I mean, and that isn't even like foolproof. Like, it's very low chance of that actually being effective. Know what else you would give them besides money and access to freezing their eggs that would actually potentially help? But money wouldn't even help, because what are they going to do with the money to make them reproduce more? Like, just what? That makes no sense. What resources?
To help with childbearing,
so
and then
here's the biggest resource I want to give to women that'll help them the most with childcare: time. The ultimate resource, that thing that you spend and never comes back to you. Yeah, I would give them time. And you know how you give women lots and lots of time? You try to move the social conditions so that they can stay fucking home with their kids. And then what do they have the most amount of abundance of? Time. The one irreplaceable thing. So if you want to give women resources and stuff, right? I don't think stuff is going to do it. I think that time is what does it. If you're going to spend most of your day away from your child, how is that conducive to reproduction? How does that help us reproduce exactly?
The government did that to keep us separated and segregated to get more tax money.
The feminist movement did.
To indoctrinate our children.
Actually, the feminist movement did.
Okay, fine.
It did.
Whatever.
It did. It really did. The original, it did. And that's why we're here now.
Sin Magic 14 donated $200.
Thank you,
You are
Sandra.
gorgeous, girl.
I think you are gorgeous.
No, wait. One. I'm so
Wait,
one.
wait,
It's
this
your
is
eight.
for you.
4, 5, 6, 7.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought you were 8. I'm
There
so
it is.
sorry. You were gorgeous too.
Did you have a response to Andrew, or?
yeah, again, I just think it's a really
Stop.
limiting stance.
gorgeous, I thought.
Me personally, I don't think I would find my ultimate purpose and value in having children. I really want a career
But
myself.
You wouldn't have to. Like, don't you understand that through the illusion of you thinking that you're promoting choice, you're promoting prison ideology? The very idea that you have is because you would not be happy being a mommy. You want to go in the workforce or some shit like that and go work for a boss in a cubicle and complain about how cold it is to the HR lady. Because that's your dream. The assumption there is that all of society should be tailored towards this thing that you want.
Exactly. If you want that, go chase that. We're not saying that women shouldn't have the right to, do what they want to do. That's not what we're saying at all. Women should have the right to go in and go work. Become the boss babe if you want to. But just because we give them the freedom to make that choice does not mean we should structure society around most women making that choice. They should have the option, but the mindset that we should be pushing is not that. So it meets both people's requirements. Women want the right to do whatever they want to do. They should have that right, to a certain degree. But society should still be structured in a way that is most optimal for, families, society, and reproduction. The two things can both exist at the same time. Female freedom to do whatever they want, but also women being, taught and trained from their young and what they see on TV to pursue family, children. And if they want to, after the kids have left the house, or after the kids have gotten to a certain age, they can start working if that's what they want to do. But we should structure society in the way that's most optimal. If we structure society in the way that's most optimal to this particular girl, that's when we run into problems. Do your thing. Have your personal life choices and go the route you want to go. But your route should not be everyone's route, because if they choose the path you're on, we're going to run into the problem that we have today, which is low birth rates.
You can still do that shit. The cross-generational or nuclear family, the backbone of all societies, the family unit. Why would you not want to move society towards that?
Well,
even if you want to go have your cushy little air-conditioned job and not reproduce.
I hate that women have to choose between raising a child and having a successful
They don't.
Yeah,
career.
exactly. But here's the thing, right?
That's the thing. It's not like one or the other. Like, oh, because I have kids, I can then never get into the work field. Bro, if you have, especially since we're advocating that women have kids early, have them young, you know what I'm saying? Like early 20s. By time you're in your like 40s, 45, your kids are old enough. They're like, you know, in their 20s. They're heading into college or graduating from college. You're going to have an empty nest. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? Right? This is when people tend to get like really bored and not really know what to do. This is when you can fill that time with, you know, actually, you know, going and getting a career, going to school and learning a skill set. That is the prime. So it's not like because you have a family, you can't go to school. That's not true at all, but they always try to make it seem like that's the choices you have to make. If I have kids, I can never have a career. You can have a career and you can have a successful family. But here's the thing. You have a better chance of having both those things if you have the kids first and the career second. Because if you have the career first, we can see, based on the statistics and the data, that if you have the career first, because of how long establishing a career, going to school, that is going to eliminate your primary fertile years and your primary attractive years in terms of you being attractive to men. So you might get, you're going to get the career, but a lot of times you forfeit the family. The best way to have both is to have the family first, because that is biology. You only have a small window in which you're most attractive and you're most fertile. So work within biology's parameters, and then the career, college, school, that isn't going anywhere. That's going to be there from the day you're born to the day you die. That's not on a time. Doesn't make sense. And this is why it shoots most women in the foot.
But what you're saying right there is that you would prefer to limit. You would prefer to create limits. I hate that they have to choose, right? Guess what? They didn't always have to choose. That wasn't always the case.
Yeah, they didn't have a choice before. It was just their children.
Why is it such a bad thing to tailor society towards the limit choice for everything? It's a good idea to limit choice.
Reproduction isn't going to stop happening. There are still plenty of women who want to bear many children, more than one, more than two. And
I would like to read for you something here. I would like to read for you the birth rate in South Korea. The birth rate in South Korea is 0.78 births per woman.
Well under replacement.
0.78, not one. It's not one child per woman on average. It's less than one child per woman on average. Now, you can watch this on a flowchart from 1960 to 2000 completely bottom out into next to nothing. South Korea isn't going to be there in 200 years or even 100 years. If they continue on track, it's going to go, they're estimating it goes as low as 0.38, right? That is civilization ending.
And the rest of the world is on the same trajectory. That's alarming. That's extremely alarming. That's not like, okay, we can think about it in the next. Dream changes to the way we do things right now. Because if we don't, we're screwed. I mean, China is dealing with the same problem, and they're trying to incorporate, things to get young people to date more, and literally government pushed things, which is what we need to do. Government pushed programs to get men and women back together, get them into relationships. That's how bad it is in China, that the government had to step in and help people get together, because they know if this continues, they're not going to have they're not going to have an economy, they're not going to have a military, and that's going to make their nation very weak and very vulnerable to invasion from literally all the other nations. So this is something everybody's thinking about. America, I don't know what the issue now.
Do they happen to have
For what? So that you can make a fucking sandwich for a boss somewhere? Like, what is that? So let me ask you this. I'll just ask you that. I've asked many feminists this. I already know the answer, but I'll ask you anyway. If it were the case that we limited women's rights in some capacity, but ended up with a thriving reproductive society, or the alternative is that society just ceased to exist because it could not reproduce itself, but women had no more for rights being somewhat limited for women.
I just don't think that's what's happening. I do have a question.
Answer the question.
She doesn't want to because she knows the answers. It's going to make her look bad.
It's a question that wouldn't realistically happen. I have a question about your previous...
It's designed to test your logic. I know it's not going to happen.
Well, I have a question about your previous statistic.
Listen, if I asked you if a meteorite struck right next door and started a big fire, would you evacuate the building? You say yes. It's not really going to happen, right? But the point is to test what you would do. So I'm going to give it to you again, the hypothetical again. If it were the case that we limited women's rights to some degree, but saw an explosion in reproduction, or we didn't limit women's rights to some degree, and society ceased to exist in 50 years or 60 years, which one would you select for?
Now, I've seen Andrew ask this question a number of times to feminists, and this is where the feminist mindset gets exposed as being very dark and being fueled by a very evil and malicious underpinning. And the feminist history is a very dark and occultic one, because most of them, when asked this question, say that they would prefer that society get wiped out and women keep their rights. Most of them respond that way. They say, if given the option between women's rights being limited, but society thrives, or women get all their rights, but society goes extinct, they say they would prefer women have their rights, but society go extinct. Thing is not for the betterment of society, because if their ideology was for the betterment of society, they would not make that choice, because their ultimate goal would be for society to flourish. But ultimately, they're okay with society ending. And if their ideology is okay with society coming to an end, that tells you that they don't really care about the overall positive outcome. Because if they would rather hold on to their ideology and then there be like a no existence of humans, you really have to question where they're coming from with this thought process. Because if you were to ask men, or a traditional conservative man, that if his rights and privileges were hindered in some way or limited in some way, but that meant that society thrived, most men, most conservative people would say, I will take my rights being limited if it means society thrives as a byproduct of that. And that tells you the ultimate intention of the end game of that ideology and belief system. Feminism, their ideology is completely fine with the ending of civilization. It's okay. That is okay in their worldview if society ends, as long as XYZ policy is in place. And that is something.
Which one would you prefer?
I don't think...
Answer the question.
I am answering the question.
All right.
I don't think what you're saying, like limiting women's rights, would... or taking away their rights, like saying that they should just be homemakers.
Yeah, conditional is if it were the case that. So if it were the case that limiting women's rights slightly, and men's even, you limit both their rights slightly, right, led to a more reproductive and happy society, or you limited their rights in some capacity, would you prefer, but that led to society ceasing to exist in 50 years, which would you select for? I'm not asking whether you think that would happen or not. So which one would you select for?
I would go with the first, but I also don't think that would be the outcome.
First? Tell us what that is.
It's just like extreme absolutes that wouldn't happen, so I really can't make a decision.
You don't know. You can't decide on whether or not the human species ceasing to exist and your society ceasing to exist.
They don't want to answer it because because it shows their ultimate intentions. It shows what they value most. That's what it shows. It shows what they value most. Do you value society and the well-being of the people? Or do you value just your ideology? If your ideology supersedes human life existing, then that is flawed. So you'll get your way, but then society dies off in the process. Then what is the point of you getting your way? There's no, like, it's a futile, like, ridiculous thing to even want. It shows what they value most. So they would rather have their ideas and beliefs be pushed and society die off than be limited in a small way, but society thrive. It's selfish, and it shows their ultimate value, what they value most.
Would be preferable over that question, and you wonder why it is that so
because
many
I don't
people
think those are
gravitate-
necessarily the exact outcomes that would
Do you
happen.
understand why so many more people gravitate towards my ideology than they do feminism? Because when you ask a person this question, it's such an easy answer, but feminists can't actually answer it because they know that the truth is that rather than be limited one iota, you would rather see society not fucking exist anymore.
But if
Isn't
roles
that
were
actually
reversed, if men were limited to just the house and they couldn't have passions and success, you would
You're not
feel
limited to just the house. I didn't say that. I said if you had some of your rights slightly limited. We have our rights slightly limited right now. I have limited rights on free speech. I can be drafted. Brian can be drafted. The men all watching can be drafted. We have all sorts of limits on our rights and all sorts of duties associated with us.
Yep.
So tell me, since, and it would be preferable for me if there was a slight limit on men's rights, but it led to a reproductive society, I would definitely prefer that.
And I think most men and most rational thinking people with good intentions who are not feminists would instantly come to that conclusion because they're looking at the betterment of society, not from a selfish standpoint, but from the majority, right? The majority are flourishing. Society's moving in a positive direction. So if my rights need to be limited in order for that to happen, well, then overall, it's going to be a positive outcome, even for me. But they're selfish, and they think they're doing it for the betterment of humanity. But ultimately, when placed in this hypothetical, it shows that their ideology, they go hand in hand. They're totally okay with that. If your ideology is about the world thriving, right, and the world getting to its best, position, then you would have to do everything in your power to avoid the ultimate end of humanity. And you would be pushing towards that, and everything you'd advocate would have to go in that direction. But if the world ending and your ideology can exist in the same universe, then that tells a lot about what your true intentions are.
So, like, which one for you?
Again, I think these are absolutes that just wouldn't happen. Like,
yeah, I know, but if they did happen, which one would you select for?
I would want, if those were the absolutes that I have to choose from, I would want society to continue to exist. So limiting women's rights. But I do not believe
on the path to the conclusion of what she's saying. And so she feels bad, so she doesn't want to sound like she's, an extremist. But most women I've heard that Andrew asked that question to have answered they prefer to have their rights and society come to an end.
Restricting their rights and would stop reproduction completely. I think we wouldn't have an issue. And I know you give that statistic in North Korea, but I do have a question: is if they have a limit to how many children that they can have?
Nope.
There's no limit?
Nope, it's not China. And China got rid of the one-child policy as well. There's no limit.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering because I was trying to conceptualize that.
So here, let me give you an easy thing that you could do to tailor this that would make a massive rebound for reproduction. Let's see if you would actually go for it. Now that you've agreed you would rather see society thrive. If it was the case that we promoted that women did not go to college, right, but used those childbearing years, which is their 20s, in order to have a family and reproduce instead, we would see an explosion in reproduction in the United States. And I know this because the correlation between women going to higher education and the birth rate dropping, you can literally draw a line parallel to each other. Because they defer their childbearing years until they're in their 30s, that's why they have so many less children, right? So would you be against a campaign which said to women, hey, you can still go to college, but you should do it later in life, after your 20s, after your reproductive years, and instead you should use those reproductive years to try to settle down with a family? Would you be against a campaign like that?
If we're in a reproductive crisis, maybe, but again, I don't think every woman's dream or value is in the fact that they can bear a child, and that's just a personal opinion, and I don't
what
think
other
necessarily.
okay
Yeah, I know you don't agree.
In fact, let's just dive down that road. What other value, what do you think is more valuable a woman can
I mean,
bring
we're
to the table?
humans, we're like the most
Yeah, I know, we're humans, but what is the more valuable thing that a woman can do?
Creating art, Andrew. Going to school to become a hair technician and a nail technician, and just artsy stuff. That's more important than creating life. There's a lot of things more important, Andrew.
Than give us children?
I just in a broader sense, our existence. I don't think we can.
Your existence is more valuable than giving more
Well, I don't
existence?
want to limit it to just reproducing. We're humans with experiences and nuances.
That women's only value is not reproduction. Name a single thing that's more valuable a woman can bring than reproduction. What is a more valuable thing a woman can do than reproduce? What?
I'd say
Community that's dwindling eventually is not going to be a community. If everyone thinks that it's more important to take care of the community instead of reproduce, you need to reproduce to have a community. So eventually the community is going to dwindle down to nothing. You have to value reproduction, and that's going to make you value the community.
necessarily think that their only value.
Well, is there a community if the women aren't reproducing?
I don't think all women are going to stop reproducing at one time. This is just like an outlandish absolute that wouldn't
They
ever
already
exist.
stopping reproduction.
It's already happening.
But it's not a crisis.
I just showed it to you. It's not just
What do you mean it's not a
there. Do you want to see what
crisis?
it is in the United States? It's dropping like a rock here too. They are not reproducing. That's one. And two, if it is the case that taking care of the community is more valuable than childbirth, then why wouldn't you advocate that no women gave birth to children and instead just took care of their community?
They're probably not reproducing anymore because men think that their only value is in giving birth, which is just not true.
Oh,
That's not why they're not reproducing. They're reproducing because of feminist propaganda telling them that it's more value to get a college degree than to have a family. And this is very intentional. And there's a very demonic, occultic, very society towards a collapse. And this is very intentional. And women are they attack the easy gender, the easily manipulated gender, right? This is why the devil went after Eve, because she's easily manipulated. It's easy to sell women on lies. It's easy because their emotions just like confuse them. So all you have to do is get to their emotions, make them feel a certain way. Boom, you got her. Oh, you don't need a man. You can go to college and you can still have everything. Oop, you're 35. You actually can't have anything? Oh, well, too bad. You've already lost at life. It's easy to get women in that trap. And this is why it's going to take us men to correct things. Because if we rely on women to come around, it's not going to happen. Us fathers, if we do have children, if we do have a family, we need to make special, intentional care to instill the right values into our children, both our boys and our girls. And when it comes to our girls, we have to keep in mind that society is trying to corrupt them and doing everything in its power to literally cram this feminist nonsense down their throat. Every time they exit the house, they step outside, every time they open up their phone, there is some programming that the enemy is trying to instill into your child. And when it comes to women, there's such things as it's okay to be promiscuous, body count doesn't matter, sexual liberation, you don't need a man, college is more important than family. All these toxic things are being ingrained in her. You are going to have to very intentionally combat that. Not kinda, mention it here and there. I mean, very intentionally, like, battle with the conditioning that the outside world is trying to get to her. You need to instill this from a young age and guide her and keep instilling it. It's not like a one-time conversation. It's a repetitive thing, a consistency until it's ingrained in her mind, until it's the way she thinks, because society's already doing that. You might be saying, well, I don't want to control her. I don't want to, influence her. I want her to make her own decisions. She's not going to end up making her own decisions. She's going to end up making the decisions that these higher forces want her to make, because they control all the media, they control all the different the college campuses, they control the jobs. She's not going to make her own decisions. She's going to think it's her own decision, but it's a decision that was instilled in her mind without her even knowing. She watches a TV show or a movie and it shows the female character, valuing her career more than her husband or more than her family. She doesn't even know that this information is being ingrained in shaping on your end. To combat that, you're going to have women like this who think they're making their own decisions, but it's not their own decision. It's decisions that were made long before they were even born. We got to combat that as fathers. We have to see the danger, see the scam for what it is, and take special care to instill the right values in our kids.
A lot of sense. Oh, hey, we have this really, really valuable. Wow, that's amazing. How dare you say that that's the most valuable thing that I can do, even though I agree with you? You think that makes sense? Like, who here can
if that's all you think women are,
that is more valuable than female reproduction from a female? What is more valuable than that? Any takers? Nothing.
Well, I can think of some things, but I can't.
I'm not.
So you can't think of anything. But then again, she was a retard the whole show. I've seen other clips from this particular podcast episode, and yeah, this chick is a retard. I'll probably be covering another clip from the Whatever podcast from this particular show, and holy crap, this chick right here that just spoke, yeah, she's a hoe. I mean, she engages in sugar baby culture with a bunch of rich men. She's proudly says this, so it's not like she says it herself proudly, multiple. She won't shut up about it the whole podcast, and she's just overly sexualized everything. The things that come out of her mouth are disgusting. Yeah, she's an idiot. So let's just completely just disregard that brain dead hoe.
I'm not saying, like, it's a beautiful thing, and for the people who want to participate in that is great for them. Everyone says it's like that's their meaning in life when they have children, and like the love is just unconditional and all of these things. But I think it's just, again, limiting to the human experience. And if men collectively only view women as something to reproduce,
All right, there's something I've been wanting to ask you since I've been listening to you tonight, and I'm going to give you the floor, right, for this, because I want to hear it in the worst way. Let's pretend that you're playing a video game where you have to organize society, okay? And you note that one people group in the video game are in trouble with hormone regulation. The other sex of the video game, or the other people group in the video game, they happen to be the ones that can have the babies. And they're a weaker sex, right? And they have a little bit more trouble with hormone regulation. Now, you want to see that society thrive. How would you organize it as the video game player? It's sim world. Those are your parameters. How would you organize this thriving society?
I think we're way more complex than a Sims game where you just want to create.
Yeah, I know. But inside of the Sims game, how would you organize the society?
similar to how you suggest we should do it in our society right now.
Isn't that
for
amazing?
a video game where they're not humans and they're not complex and they don't have aspirations
isn't it
outside of
amazing?
reproduction.
Isn't it amazing that when you ask a feminist this question, they want to organize society exactly how I want to in order to beat the game?
If those are the parameters, you've given us the craziest parameters. Like these are.
How is that crazy
That you have a
parameters?
stronger sex that's twice as strong as the other, and one sex can reproduce. You mean all of human experience?
But that
Those are
doesn't
the
mean
crazy
that's all we're
parameters?
meant for. Just because we're the only ones that can do it doesn't mean that's
What do
our
you keep?
only.
The
What
reason
else
you
are we
keep
meant
mob-
What are we meant for? What are we meant for? And you know, she would have a no, she wouldn't have a point. But if even if we're going by like the religious text, it says we're meant to reproduce. But I know she's not religious, so because that would guide her framework and how she views the world and what she's saying. So she's not religious. But if she was religious, then yeah, reproduction is definitely even spoken about in the Bible. You know, be fruitful and multiply. Same thing in the Quran, same thing in other religions as well. Reproduction. It's key. It's fundamental to all the religions. However, she's not. So I want to know, where is she pulling this from that we are meant to do more than reproduce? Because it's not religion or that she's pulling from for that. So where is she getting that from? And who said we're more than that? Even if like what? What's greater? What is greater than that?
Prolifically saying we're all only meant for X, right? Most women are meant for reproduction. Yes, you all have reproductive organs so that you can reproduce. Men also. Guess what? They're designed for reproduction. The reason their dicks get hard and they want to put them inside a woman's vagina is because they're biologically engineered to fucking reproduce. That's why. And so the reason they look at you and they're like, wow, she's got big old tits and nice little voluptuous hips or whatever it is that they say, it's because perspective. That's how all of fucking humanity is organized and how all of humanity has always organized. Now, I would like you, as the video game player, to show me your new humanity and how it's organized. I can't fucking wait.
Have you heard about them reproducing or making children potentially from the bone marrow of...
That the test tube babies could actually happen absent female eggs? You know why? Because the one power that women do have in society is the power over reproduction. And I would love to see what happened if men then had the power over reproduction. I think that your ideas of being an equal citizen and things like that with men would completely deteriorate into non-existence if men had the power over their own reproduction. Imagine a man could just go and make the type of baby that he wanted, absent ever having to have a long-term relationship with a woman. Wouldn't they prioritize that? And what do you think happens to the rights of women then?
Oh, that was a own. A reality where a man can not have to deal with a woman. He no longer has to risk divorce. He no longer has to risk losing half his assets. He no longer has to risk being trapped in a marriage that's sexless, that is emasculating, that is just torment. He no longer has to put up with female disrespect. All he has to do is just save up enough money to pay for this procedure, and he can have his kid all to himself. He doesn't have to sign up and get involved with any woman nagging him. And here's the thing about that. That wouldn't actually be bad. You know why? Because when you look at the statistics when it comes to parents, you know, single mothers, single fathers, and two-parent households, single father households do almost just as good as two-parent households. So we can look at the statistics and see that actually society would look far better than it does now if men were the ones in control of reproduction. If men could just have that, absent women, not only would we have better citizens, better kids, and if men no longer needed women. Oh my God. Like the main thing, like he said, the power, that leverage that women have is their sexuality and their ability over their power and their authority over reproduction. If they didn't have that, we would not need them. And if men don't need women, in that capacity for reproduction, then you would actually be only good for sex. Men would have their kids and then probably do the snip surgery where they, make themselves, not able to get a girl pregnant. I forgot, get a vasectomy. They'd probably have their kids, pay for the procedure, have 1 or 2 kids, get themselves a vasectomy, and then just use women as sex toys because we wouldn't need you for anything else. And then we could just have, we would just have like random sexual encounters, or maybe a woman that we allow into our lives, but we would never have to worry about accidentally getting her pregnant and then her leveraging that over us. Like literally, oh my gosh, that would free men. That reality would free men from all the leverage women have over us. We would literally only see them as sex toys if that were to happen. So trust and believe. That reality that she just said, you don't want that, sweetheart. You want men to need you, especially in the reproduction category. Because if we don't, then what other purpose would you have other than sexual pleasure for us? That would be scary. It would be, men wouldn't no longer want to get a woman pregnant because of all the risk. If I could get a woman, if I can have a kid without any of the risks involved, why would I go the biological route of impregnating a woman and then have to deal with all the unfair laws that come alongside that? Sweetheart, you do not want a reality where men have control over reproduction, because females would become obsolete in a matter of years.
I think the case is that you still need the female egg, but in a
Great.
world you're
and
saying...
how many female eggs can you get?
A lot. Yep, I forgot. It was like, I'm not sure if there was hundreds or thousands, but every woman is born with a certain amount of female eggs, and it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. Actually, you know what? I want to look it up. What exactly... How many female eggs are women born with? Let me look that up real quick because I'm curious. Let's look that up. Born with. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that's a lot. It says women are born with 1 to 2 million female eggs, immature female eggs in their ovaries. And these are the eggs they will have over their entire lifetime. Yeah. Yep. Says by puberty, about 300,000 to 500,000 eggs remain. So yeah, that's a lot of eggs. And with all the women, oh yeah, men will have more than enough eggs. Absolutely.
Hey, if you'll sell your assholes on OnlyFans, I'm pretty sure you'll sell your eggs for a few $1,000. Of being an equal citizen and things like that with men would completely deteriorate into non-existence if men had the power over their own reproduction. Imagine a man could just go and make the type of baby that he wanted, absent ever having to have a long-term relationship with a woman. Wouldn't they prioritize that? And
Absolutely.
what do you think happens to the rights of women then?
Gone. Thanos snapped out of
I think the case is
existence.
that you still need the female egg, but in a
Great.
world you're
and
saying...
how many female eggs can you get? You can
Millions.
Get a lot of them.
A lot.
If you'll sell your assholes on OnlyFans, I'm pretty sure you'll sell your eggs for a few $1,000.
Ooh, she has no comeback for that one. No comeback for that one. And it's true. They don't even value their own bodies. They'll sell literally their entire sexuality for $5.99 on OnlyFans. You don't think they're going to sell the millions of eggs they have if they could get a couple $1,000s for each? Bro, why wouldn't they? Look how many they have. They'll sell their bodies for less. And anyway, they don't even want to have the kids anyway. They don't even want to have babies. They want to keep their bodies all nice and tight. Okay, great. Keep your body nice and tight. give me your eggs, I'll pay for it, I'll have the kids by myself, and then I'll use your nice, tight, non-stretch marked body for sexual pleasure only. I don't need to provide for you. I don't need to take care of you. Now you are useless outside of your sexuality because I control reproduction. I can provide for myself and I can have kids. I don't have to have the government involved. I don't have to worry about some. That's not a reality you want. The rights of women. Why would we care about your rights if we could have everything you offer for nothing? For a couple of dollars, we could have your entire power. The power that comes of reproduction that you solely have monopolized, which is why we even care about you in the first place. You don't think we're going to do that? And women are so materialistic that they would gladly allow themselves to be replaced if they got some money out of it. So they'd absolutely sell their eggs. They already do sell their eggs, but they'd sell it on a much larger scale if the industry was booming like that. Oh man, sweetheart, you'd become irrelevant overnight. Literally, the only use would be for sex.
Anyway, I mean, my take is just that I think it's extremely limiting to assume women's roles in society, even if again, we're not in a reproductive crisis. Like, this is like extremes that we're discussing.
It is a reproductive crisis.
Show me then the society that you would organize and how it would thrive absent those narrow gender roles where you have one sex, which is twice as strong as the other and can't reproduce. The other is half as strong and can reproduce. How the fuck would you organize society better? How? Yeah. Nothing. Crickets. Because can't be done. Because the only logical thing would be to take you're twice as strong as this sex. Let's put you in all the strength roles. And this sex, which is much weaker than you and can reproduce, we should probably put them in the nurturing roles. You know this. It's intuitive. Everybody knows it just by looking at it. But right now, you have the opportunity of a lifetime. You can make me look so fucking stupid. All you'd have to do is point out how you would organize society absent that. Go ahead.
I just think we're way beyond the necessity to have a structure that consists of what you're suggesting.
How are we way beyond that? The pillars of society are still as such. Men must do the hard labor jobs. Women, because of they're not as strong, must do the other jobs that don't require strength. Wait, what? Flip society backwards. The thing is, women think that, like I said earlier, women think that we have surpassed biology. We have not. If the roles were reversed and women were in the labor jobs and men did the cushy air conditioning jobs, society would collapse. How in the world did she get this idea that we're surpassed this? Instead of horses, we have cars. Instead of using, old shovels, we have like mechanical tools. But we're all still doing the same jobs, just in a more advanced way.
How are we beyond that? Do you think that women
just
are going to go get hard hats and start logging, or what? Do you think
if that's their passion, sure. I don't see the reason in limiting their existence to just reproducing.
This chick is retarded.
They're not limited right now, and they don't do any of those fucking jobs. They don't log. They're not linemen. They're not inside of the electrical fields. They're not inside of the trades. They don't do any of that shit. They get degrees in nursing and in psychology, and they work in fucking office jobs, and they work as servers, and they do the same top 10 jobs that they've done for the last 100 years. The same shit. Tell me how they're limited right now. How?
Because we exist in the roles that you're suggesting is the best.
Because why? Because those are the roles that you're capable of doing, and that's why women select for them. Why do you think women don't select to be plumbers? Why do you think they don't select to be loggers, even though they can? Why do you think they don't select to be linemen? Why do you think they don't select for jobs which fucking kill you? Which is why you see the rate of death from women in the workforce is basically 0%, and from men, it's overwhelmingly high. Why do you think women select for those jobs? Why?
Biology, perhaps?
Because of all the reasons you've suggested here.
No, she thinks it's social conditioning. Social conditioning, not the fact that one sex is 2 times stronger than the other, and then the weaker sex is the only one that can reproduce. No, that can't be it. It's because social conditioning, Andrew. If we just social conditioned women on the oil rigs, if we social condition them to think like that, then society would be more equal and more balanced, and we'd see more female bricklayers, and and plumbers and electricians, and then the men would be taking care of the kids and doing the customer service jobs. We just need to social condition them, Andrew. That's what you don't understand. Biology, we've surpassed biology, Andrew. Come on. That's basically her argument. But then when he tells her to demonstrate a society how that would work, show me how that would be structured, she has nothing to say. She just goes back to, I just think it's very limiting. Okay, show me how you would structure society. Show me how you would structure society better than how we structure it now. I just think it's very limiting. It's like, bro, what's limiting is your mental capacity to understand that we have not surpassed biology. Even the medical things that we put in place to try to surpass biology have consequences on our bodies when it comes to birth control. There's negative consequences for that on the female body. When it comes to freezing your eggs, it has a very low success rate. Because when you try to step outside the lines of biology, there will be a price to pay. Either health-wise or society-wise. And we're experiencing that.
Because those are the ones they can do.
And I'm just saying, as a counter argument, that I think that's limiting. I think a lot of women would find success in male-dominant roles.
Limited by your own existence. When you die,
it's by your structure. It's not just our own existence.
You should go and you should complain to God that He limited your existence to how you exist. But the truth of the matter is that you couldn't organize society any other way. I just gave you the force so you could demonstrate it. You couldn't. All right, I asked you why it is that women, when they have free choice, still don't choose any of these dangerous jobs that men do. You couldn't explain that either, except to say it's because those are the ones that they can do. Right?
No,
how do you organize society differently? How?
I'm saying we have opportunity now to not have to force women to just reproduce.
Jobs that you were doing for the past 100 years. All the opportunity in the world, I agree. You could go. Be a construction worker. You could go work on the oil rig. All that is 100% available to you. And yet, we don't see any change in society. So even with all the feminist push towards women freedom to be able to do it, boundaries or box within the few jobs that they choose, why don't they branch out of that? Go into more masculine jobs? Because no matter how much society changes, you are still your genetic makeup. You are still biologically what you are, a man or a woman. And so whether or not you want to accept limitations, you are unfortunately limited to certain things that you can do. And that is going to establish what role you play in society. It's unfortunate. You can rage against the system as much as you want. That's not going to change the facts, not going to change the reality. Andrew tried his best to try to get her to see reason and try to, bring some logic to her. But, she's the strong, independent, educated. This is the education system at play. It basically teaches you, it poisons you, indoctrinates you with foolishness. And then it makes you mentally rigid to where you can't see reason anymore. And this woman thinks she's very educated. And you notice that every time she comes up against a wall with her logic, she just doubles down, doesn't explain how her worldview, and reality. And she just refuses to acknowledge that perhaps she's wrong, or perhaps her worldview is flawed. And that's what the education system basically does to women. Just makes them incredibly hard-headed, makes them think they're smarter than they actually are, because that society tells them, feminism tells them that you're right. The poison is seeped in so nearly impossible. Some women make a recovery, and you'll see women on the internet saying, I used to be a feminist, but then this changed my mind and I saw the perspective of this. But most never recover. Most never recover, because feminism and then getting an education, that combination makes women like immensely hard-headed and or valid. I'm educated and that's why I'm correct. No, you're just ignorant and refuse to see reason, and you're hard-headed, and now you're just, you can't even be reasoned with. It's unfortunate, but it's still good to see these kind of debates and see the kind of pushback, because maybe not on this podcast, but maybe in her personal life while she's sitting in the car alone driving, she'll rethink on this debate and, try to, and maybe come full circle on and get their worldviews changed. You never know. But hey guys, that was the live stream. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching this live stream later on, please go ahead and like the video. I'm trying to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers. I'm going to be live streaming very regularly, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to be definitely reacting to a lot more whatever podcast, because I love this. It's really good back and forth. And you get to see the mindset of a lot of modern women. So stay tuned for the next live stream. And until next time, guys, take it easy.